Still using SSH keys, RDP logins, and database credentials? It's time to access your infrastructure like it's no longer 1999. StrongDM is the only modern infrastructure access platform. It creates a seamless, secure, and observable air gap between your staff and the critical infrastructure that powers your company. Instantly revoke access to every database, Kubernetes cluster, or server with a click. Automatically log every query, SSH, and kube control command to know who did what, when, and where across your stack. Eliminate credentials from end-user workflows to deploy access that's zero trust and least privilege by default. Trusted by your peers at Peloton, SoFi, Yext, and Chime, StrongDM is the only way to deploy secure access controls in a way folks love to use. But who believes an ad? Check it out for yourself with a no BS demo. Sign up at www.strongdm.com/get-a-demo.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well as we continue to move through April of 2022. Real quick, it's funny. I was recording another podcast. Sometimes we record shows, a few weeks or a little bit ahead of time. And, I mentioned while I was closing out that show, I said, we reached a milestone for the show. We crossed recently having 10 million listens for the show all time. And I realized that show's probably not going to go out for like a month. I mentioned that just because I want to thank the audience. We wouldn't have gotten to 1 million listens or 100,000 listens or 10 million listens if it wasn't for you. So thank you all for always giving us a little bit of your time each week, for telling a friend and all those sort of things. So kind of a cool milestone to get to. It's taken us a while. It's been, like they said, 11, 12 years doing the show, but very, very cool that as a community we reached that level. So anyways, today's show I want to dig into as a Sunday perspective. Had a very nice woman reach out to us and was in the industry, and she said, "Hey, I'm thinking about going through a transition in my job. The focus of my job. I am an engineering manager. I've been an engineering manager for a long time, and I'm thinking about getting into product management." And there was some other things that were in the note that she sent us, and we're going to try and follow up on those things. But this is a question and a comment and an area of focus that we get quite a bit from people. And the biggest thing that this person I reached out to us about is they said, I'm concerned that as I move from an engineering role, which obviously the basis of how people perceive your value is it skews very much towards the technical side. Do you understand the technology? Do you create the technology? Do you build the technology? Maintain the technology? All those sort of things. And the concern was, well, if I go over to this other role, which is in product management, or let's say it's in product marketing, or really anything else, I'm going to lose some level of that technical, and I'm concerned that my value perception within the company, within the industry, whatever, is going to diminish. And that's a perfectly normal concern to have, especially if you've been doing engineering for a decent period of time, where you've gotten to a level that you're starting to feel like, oh, I've broken through. I'm more recognized than I was before, right? And so what I want to try and do today is, because we get this question a lot, we get it from a lot of different people, a lot of different stages of their career. I thought what I would do is dig into that a little bit, and we'll do that right after the break. Today's sponsor is Datadog, a real-time monitoring platform that unifies metrics, logs, and distributed traces from your cloud containers and orchestration software. Datadog's container-centric monitoring features allow you to track the health and performance of your dynamic container environment. The container map provides a bird's-eye view of your container fleet, and the live container view searches, groups, and filters your containers with any criteria, like tags, pods, or workspaces. To start monitoring your container clusters, sign up for a free trial today, and Datadog will send you a free t-shirt. Visit datadog.com/container-cloudcast to get started. That's datadog.com/container-cloudcast. Today's show is sponsored by CloudZero. For software-driven companies focused on growing margins, CloudZero is the only cloud cost intelligence platform that puts engineering in control by connecting technical decisions to business results. By analyzing cloud services like AWS and Snowflake, CloudZero provides real-time cost insights that help you maximize margins. Engineering teams can answer critical questions like, who are my most expensive customers? How much does this specific feature cost our business? What's the cost impact of re-architecting this application? With cost anomaly alerts via Slack, product-specific data views, and granular engineering context that makes it easy to investigate any cost, CloudZero is your complete cloud cost intelligence platform, connecting the dots between high-level trends and individual line items. Join companies like Drift, Rapid7, and SeatGeek by visiting cloudzero.com/cloudcast to get started today. That's cloudzero.com/cloudcast. And we're back. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to dive into this question that came in about, for people that are in the engineering discipline, are, in quote unquote engineering specific roles, and they want to think about transitioning over to, more of a product centric role, right? Product management or some other aspect of, kind of being on the product side of things without being on the engineering side of things. And, for those of you that are in maybe what I would call sort of end user or customer environments, this may not necessarily relate to you, but it might. But this is probably going to be really relevant for anybody who, works in the side of our industry that is building product or building, consumable cloud services, whatever those things might be. Now, by way of background, I have never actually been in pure engineering. I've been in groups that are product management, product marketing, solutions engineering, field engineering, all sorts of things like that. I've never actually built the bits themselves that we've built, but have built lots of things around product. But more importantly, I've seen a lot of different people transition between different groups and have had a chance to lead some of those teams, had a chance to have people come into my teams who have worked in other groups before and, tried to help them, manage transitions from one to another. And I think more than anything, the biggest concern you have, and I've gone through this myself, I think I've mentioned this on a podcast, I feel like maybe a month or so ago, there will be times which you spend a lot of time in this industry, trying to gain, credibility, reputation, build up a portfolio of things that, prove that you are technically capable, that you're able to build things, to solve problems, to maintain things for long periods of time, whatever it might be. You spend a lot of time doing that, and it's a very difficult thing to do because it requires you to prove that you can learn. It requires to prove that you can actually create something, that you can solve problems, that you can understand what's going on enough to create some things. Oftentimes to recognize that there are gaps in things that need to be filled, all those sort of things. And again, whether this is learning a new skill or developing expertise in a skill, that's a focus that takes a long time. And over time, it builds up a great deal of credibility for you. Now, when you decide at some point, hey, I want to think about transitioning away from that being the thing that I do every day, the thing that I'm measured against, that I'm perceived to have value to my employer, to the industry with, and go into something else, typically what happens is it could be a lot of reasons why you might want to change. Number one, you may just be bored, right? You may just say, look, the grind of being in this part of the industry, this part of a type of job just doesn't satisfy me anymore. It just doesn't, it doesn't motivate me every day to want to get up. I'm just not, there's just either it bores you or you see other things, other aspects of the industry, other aspects of jobs that just seem more appealing to you. And, maybe they scratch an itch that, they're going to be more creative, or they're going to have different responsibilities, or maybe they're just simply, look, I think I can make more money in those other jobs. And those are all perfectly valid reasons. Maybe it's, you want to dedicate more time to something or another. Anyways, whatever your reasoning is, they're all perfectly valid. But the first thing that typically goes through people's mind is they go, okay, I am perceived to be valuable because of my technical skills, my technical depth, my technical knowledge, whatever perception you have of that. And the thing you have to overcome is you typically go, well, my perception of this next job, let's call it product management, is that the value created in that job is something else, right? And you start to say, okay, do I have any of those skills today, right? Is there anything that I have that's immediately transferable such that my learning curve won't be so big? And then the second thing is, in the areas where you feel like you don't have those things, how long will that learning curve take? Because obviously, oftentimes these kind of decisions come after a few years of having been in the previous job, and you go, boy, does that mean I have to start over, right? Like if I'm maybe not a junior person, I'm a mid-level person, or maybe I'm a senior person, and then I'm going to start over in some other place. Do I have to start over at the bottom? Do I get to start midway up the sort of hierarchy, if you will? And those are all realistic decisions to sort of go through. And then the other one is, just the sort of general, hey, am I gonna sort of expose myself as not knowing what I'm talking about? So let's sort of walk through all those things, because I think they're all really valid. And for especially in the case of this question that we're going to center the show around, they're all legitimate considerations to take in, especially as you evaluate where you are with your life, how much risk you're willing to take, how much security you're looking for, all those sort of things. So I think the first thing that I always convey to people is that, most people in our industry understand more than most other people that have to interact with our technology. Now, that doesn't mean that, one group is smarter than the other group, but, technical knowledge tends to travel, if you will, right? Your technical knowledge will be valuable anywhere else within the industry. And it's valuable for two reasons. One, because you've built up a level of sort of domain expertise to understand systems and understand how things work. That's going to transfer. Even if you work on something that's somewhat different, your ability to go, oh, okay, that's like this, and okay, that's like that, and okay, I can figure those things out. But the second most important thing is the reason you got to where you were technically is because you created an ability to learn, right? And to learn continuously, and to learn frequently, and to learn quickly. And that muscle set, if you will, that ability to do that and that desire to do that is most likely going to carry forward, right? You don't just immediately be like, oh, I don't know how to learn anything anymore. Now, are you going to have learning curves? Sure. Are you going to have areas that are challenging to learn? Sure. But your sort of technical foundation and your ability to learn will become valuable, again, whether you're in product management or something else, right? So that's the first thing to sort of keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is the level of depth of a technical skill that you have for something that you're working on right now, right? Every in and out of how that thing works and how the code was built and where the flaws are and, how things are designed to work and how they work in reality, all those sort of things. Those are all awesome. But the reality is, most technical decisions, right? Well, most technology buying decisions, technology usage decisions aren't 100% technically based, right? You have to understand a lot of other factors, right? You have to understand the technology, sure, but you have to understand the economics of why somebody's buying something, whether it's something new or to replace something, right? Same sort of economics we all sort of mentally do in our head every time that, a new iPhone comes out. Oh, okay, well, it costs this much money and, I'm this far into it, is that extra cost valuable? Does it create any value for me? So kind of understanding the economics of what technologies do is really important. But you also have to understand the business context. Like, why are they doing this? Like, what problem does it solve? What are they trying to accomplish with this, right? Does it take pain out of their, does it simplify their system? Does it take pain off the plate of the people who have to use it? Does it allow them to do something completely different, do it in 3 steps instead of 20 steps, whatever those things might be? You have to understand, the flexibility options this this buyer is looking for, right? Like, are they buying something that immediately solves a problem? Are they buying something that sort of solves a problem today, but also, buys them the flexibility if, path A, B, or C happen in the future, and so they're buying, future flexibility, sort of insurance and so forth. And then finally, you need to understand the personalities involved, right? You have to understand, what are the skill sets of these people that are going to use the technology have, right? Like, oh, we could talk about DevOps or GitOps or, full stack development or whatever the heck it is. But if these folks are just like, look, the best I can do is hire these mid-level Java developers to work on this thing, and half the time they're contract people, and half the time they're people that come and go but leave every year. The product that they're going to use is probably going to be very different than the ones who say, hey, I can afford $500,000, $1 million full stack engineers here in Silicon Valley, and we're going to work on the latest and greatest, bleeding edge technologies and all those sort of things. And so again, how you're going to interact with the people that are going to use your product have somewhat to do with technology, but they also have to do with a lot of other things, right? And so it's going to stretch your ability to use your people skills, use your listening skills, use your negotiation skills, use your ability to not only listen to what they're saying, but understand what they're saying, be able to be creative and coming back and saying, hey, I heard you say A, B, and C, and you're trying to solve this thing D, but I think that maybe we don't need A, B, and C. We could just get from A to D using this one thing. And I know that you've done A, B, C forever, but there's other options. There's other possibilities, right? And so all those things come into play. They're way beyond technical. They involve, like I said, a lot of different things: economics and context and flexibility and skills that people have today, and how much they're willing to transition, change, and all those sort of things. Anyway, so the reason I mention all that is, as you're thinking about other roles, you have to think about, where are my non-technical skills, right? How well do you get along with people, right? How well do you, are you willing to work with groups, with teams? How well do you deal with, with people giving you not only good feedback, hey, that's great code you wrote, but negative feedback, right? So, one of the things that I say all the time with product managers, and this isn't a, Gracely, unique insight and knowledge, but as a product manager, you have to think, well, as soon as I ship the product, right? So somewhere at some point in time, you're going to decide, hey, we should build this thing, or you're told, hey, you need to build this thing, right? Maybe your upper level vice president says, we're going to build this thing. You need to be understanding that on day one, that thing that you ship is either going to be, doesn't have enough features, is too expensive, or is late to market. And it might have all three of those things on day one. And so the people that, you're trying to engage with are going to be frustrated with you in some aspect of that, right? The flip side is they're going to be thrilled with you in some aspect of that, right? The thing that you built, hopefully, has a specific problem in mind, or a specific set of customers, or a specific industry, or a specific use case, whatever that might be, that it solves some problems. Now, it might be expensive. There might be competitors out there who have already done this and they're way ahead of you. But you have to be able to deal with that. And then you have to be able to go, okay, how do we move forward, right? How do we, reduce the price of the product? How do we add new features at a rate that's acceptable to the market? How do we talk to those potential buyers of your product and really dive into what problem are they solving? How do we get from what you have to offer them to what problem they want solved, and to listen? Because if you're just simply taking their feedback, it's the old Steve Jobs thing of nobody would have ever asked for a car. They would have asked for faster horses, or whatever the, modified quote really is. So that's one of the challenges of being a product manager is you're not always going to be evaluated on how good your technical knowledge is or how good your technical skills are, but it's often going to be, your softer skills, your people skills, your listening skills, your negotiation skills. And so that's one of the things that you have to really think about is, is that something that you want to take on as a challenge? And for some people that are, both technically very good, but also, somewhat more extroverted, that's a really interesting challenge. Maybe for people who are more introverted, that might be a little more of a difficult challenge for them because the way that they know themselves to respond to criticism or to respond to negative feedback. Now, it's also again, these are all opportunities for you to sort of explore. Where do you want to grow? Where do you want to be in some number of years or some period in the future? The other thing to understand as you're getting into product management, and I think this is really important, especially if you're making a jump from engineering to your first product management job, is going to be, what am I getting into? What area of products am I getting into? And I don't mean like, oh, you're getting into AI versus you're getting into developer tools or you're getting into cloud services. But is the thing that you're going to manage, like how much control, how much ability to influence are you going to have? Right? Because in some cases, you are going to be the product manager of some standalone thing, right? It's going to be, a distinct piece of software, a distinct cloud service, a distinct capability, maybe that's built into a physical thing. Maybe you're going to build an athletic wearable that happens to have, software inside of it and does a cool thing to track how people run or sleep or whatever it might be. But that's one of the first things you want to know is the thing that I'm going to be the product manager of somewhat standalone, in which case, I sort of own everything about it, or, I have the ability to decide where it goes in the market and all those things, or are you going to be the product manager for something that's part of something bigger, right? So maybe you're going to join a platform team and you're going to be responsible for, the AI and ML data services, or you're going to be responsible for the user interface, whatever that might be. Those two jobs are very different. Yes, there are going to be a lot of things that are similar in terms of how you lay out requirements, how you do sprint planning, and how do you use the resources that are made available to you to build what you've got to build. How do you work with other teams to build the integrations that you need to build? But one of the things to keep in mind is the opportunity that I'm moving to going to be more standalone, or is it going to be more integrated? And again, there's pros and cons to both of those. I think, depending on how you self-evaluate yourself, depending on how creative you are, how entrepreneurial you are, how well you understand the broader market, how well you're willing to deal with, failure and experimentation, all those sort of things. You may find, well, the first thing I want to do is try this type of product management versus that type of product management. And again, there's pros and cons to both. It's worth talking to people who have been a product manager of one type of quote unquote product or feature or service versus another, to kind of get their feedback on, what's a good place to try and jump into. And again, a lot of it is sort of understanding your personality, where you think you have skills, where you think maybe, well, I think I have a capability, but I want to expand upon it, versus I know I'm terrible at this, right? And I think at some point you have to do some self-evaluation, right? Are you good at certain things? Do you know you're bad at certain things? Maybe you've done them in the past and they just don't work and they don't give you any joy or satisfaction, or it's just not something you think you're capable of learning. And that's perfectly fine, right? It's good to do that self-evaluation, but doing part of those evaluations of yourself or having others help you do that may help you figure out, what's the right kind of product that I should be managing, right? And again, it's not so much like, oh, is it, this technology or that technology, but, are you going to be somewhat standalone, or are you going to be part of a broader, kind of a broader team and product or platform? Sometimes those are really helpful, right? Now, I go back to your people skills are going to be challenged. I think the biggest thing that I find in talking to engineering people who move into other roles is, a lot of times their technical skills travel and their ability to learn travels and moves well. Their people skills are where it's challenging. And again, this is where, the ability to ask good questions, to listen, to synthesize what's being said, to understand there's going to be times when you think you built something that's perfect and should be used in a certain way, and you're going to come back and you're going to find your users or customers or whatever are going to go, I'm not at all interested in using it like that. And how well you respond to that is going to determine whether or not you can be successful, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm getting criticism. How do I respond to that criticism? There's a different perspective. How do I respond to that? You're also going to have to deal with sort of the people skills of negotiation and probably never having enough resources to do all the things that you want to do. So how do you negotiate? How do you put forth something that gets perceived as being very interesting, right? So a lot of those things really, really come into play. The last thing that I'll kind of point out is the other thing that happens when you move from engineering, and in engineering, you obviously typically are going to be working not only with your team, but there's probably going to be other groups that you have to work with. But so much of what you do is engineering focused. You're focused on, hey, do you have good code? Does it integrate well? Do you have good APIs? Is it maintainable? All those sort of things, right? When you get into product management, you have to come to a realization that your success is ultimately going to be dependent on a lot of other groups. And that's going to feel sort of weird. So, for example, it's going to be dependent on your marketing team understanding your product and being able to market it in a way that makes you stand out, that gets people to understand what you do before they ever talk to you, right? Like, how does this thing work? Oh, I went to the website and I read through it. Did the website make sense? Did the website clearly identify what that problem that it tries to solve or how it works? And, so having a deep understanding that you've got to work with marketing. You're going to have to work with, sales teams or directly interface with customers. You're going to have to deal with finance groups and pricing groups that, don't think think your product is awesome, but don't think they should have to pay for it, or that there's not as much value created to them as you want them to get. And they want to, they want to pay you, 1/10 of what you think it's valued at. Right. And understanding that at the end of the day, all those groups being good at their job and you helping them being good at their job is going to make or break whether or not you're successful. And some people love that. Some people love the fact that, they're going to be involved with all these different things. It just gets the synapses in their brain firing. And for others, they're just frustrated as hell that the marketing group doesn't understand the awesome wonderfulness that they've created and understand all the features that they've built and all these sort of things. And they just don't market it well enough. And so the reason the product fails is because marketing is terrible, right? Well, again, ultimately, as the product manager, you're responsible for if the product is successful. And so in order to be able to deal with that, in order to accomplish that, you're going to have to deal with a lot of different groups. And that can be a really cool challenge, or it can be a really daunting challenge. And again, different people, thrive in those environments. And then the last thing I'll say, I said this will be the last thing I'll say, is, as you're thinking about moving out of engineering, maybe your next logical choice is, hey, I should get into product management. But the reality is, once you get out of engineering and you get closer to the customer, there are really a whole lot of jobs that open up and a lot of different roles that open up, right? So there's product management, there's product marketing, right? And you can explore what product marketing means. Maybe we should do that in a different show. But then there's a whole bunch of other sort of semi-engineering sort of, they sort of straddle the fence between product management, marketing, and then something that engages with customers, right? And they're all somewhat, they don't necessarily have to be sales. You're not going out and taking a commission job, but you hear about jobs like technical marketing, systems engineer, sales engineer, developer evangelist, right? There's a whole bunch of jobs that all sort of, like I said, straddle the line between you understand product, you understand technology, you're presenting the value of it to the marketplace. Yes, you're having to sell a little bit because you're interacting with people and you're trying to convince them that what you do is valuable. But they also, there's value in, how you communicate, how you create, but maybe you're creating a presentation, or you're creating a demo, or you're creating a very cool web experience, or you're creating a module that's going to go out of the open source community that you think is going to help grow the community and add value to what you do. So, you may look at and listen to me talk about product management and go, okay, some of that sounds interesting. Some of it doesn't sound interesting at all. But some of those other jobs, those might scratch an itch that also allow me to stay technical, but allow me to get closer to talking to the market, talking to customers, interacting with the people that deal with my technology hands-on day in and day out. I'm sort of helping to, understand how to better use it, how to better, engage people, how to help train them, whatever those things might be. Those are all also available types of capabilities that if you are looking to get out of engineering specifically, but still want to be technical, product management isn't the only path forward, even though maybe that's the person or the group that you interact with the most today within your organization. So again, those maybe are things that are worth exploring. So last thing I'll say is I know some people, like I said, have reached out to us before and said, hey, I'm thinking about making this transition. I'm gonna throw this out to the community. If you are somebody who, if that's your path, cool. We're always willing to sort of help guide people in that path. But a lot of times people will say, hey, do you know anybody who's willing to mentor us? And so I asked the community, and again, I would love to hear from anybody. If you are somebody who's gone through these types of transitions and you are interested in mentoring people, because maybe that's something that you want to start doing, is you want to start adding mentorship towards your resume, right? It's a great capability to have. It's a great experience to have to help, kind of pay it forward, if you will. If you're interested in that, let us know. We'd love to pair up some people, whether we'd have to, kind of figure out ways to do that. And maybe there's time zones or technologies pairings that have to happen. But if you're somebody who would like to help mentor, let us know. We'd love to, kind of pair you up with some people who are reaching out and saying, hey, I'm looking for mentorship, or I'm looking for some guidance that maybe, Aaron and I aren't capable of doing. So with that, thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks for another Sunday Perspective show. Enjoyed digging into this topic. It's one that we get quite a bit. And our general thought process is always, if we get a question enough times, it's probably worth doing a show about, because it's a topic that people are interested in. So hopefully some of this was valuable to you. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you are staying safe out there, wherever you are. And with that, thanks all for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.